Hi, this is Kamera. Points in the Bible, day number 29, Exodus chapter 33 through 35. There are some interesting points in the word today. Number one, how God was at one point decided he didn't want to go with the children of Israel, and how God is more forgiving than we are. And just a few things that is very interesting. Number one, remember, God is upset with the children of Israel because he sees that they are stubborn and they are rebellious. He had shown them so much of his power, his presence, yet they still did not want to do what they promised they would do. They said they will obey God. They will be faithful to God. And at the first sign of problems, they turned their back on God. So God said, if I go with you guys, I will eventually destroy you. And when Moses went back with that report, they weren't happy about that. In fact, they mourned over that. And God told them to get rid of all of the ornaments, all the fancy dressing they were doing, get rid of all of that until he decides when it's okay for them to start that back up. But yeah, they had the nerve to be disappointed that God didn't want to be with them after they chose not to trust him and follow him obedient like they had agreed to. And that right there, guys, we want our cake and we want to eat it too. We want to live a life pleasing to us, not a life that's pleasing to God. And we will still want God to be in the midst of our craziness and our rebellion. So, guys, that's something to think about. When we decide we want to be rebellious with God and stubborn, do things our own way, don't want to humble ourselves, and we want to have all this pride, and we want to have all this anger and unforgiveness, and we feel justified and we're entitled. Well, God is not going to be in the midst of that. So we need to think twice about, is it really worth it? And so, yeah, they had the nerve to be distressed over that. And Moses, I love the fact that he already had favor with God. But he told the Lord, he said, if I have found favor with you, he wanted to know more about God. He wanted to, so that, he could please God even more. And this is the thing, guys, we get to a point where we feel like we know God enough or we're faithful enough to God. And that should be enough because we're comparing ourselves to the next person. That's not a good thing. We should always be true to who we are in God's eyes. We feel like we're measuring ourselves with the next person. No, you can do better. You can be more faithful to God. And I applaud Moses for that, even though God said that, he knew that he found favor with God, but he wanted to make sure and to do even more, to live a life even more pleasing to God. And that's the way we should always be. Don't think that we're at that point where we feel like we're already there. No, there's always more to learn, more humility, more knowledge, more wisdom we can get from God. So let's not get to that point where we're so comfortable and we feel like we've had enough. No, there's always more. And God says, you have pleased me. And so Moses used to meet God in this tent that he would erect. And he named it the tent of meetings. And people would watch him go into that tent of meetings. They would bow when he goes, because the cloud, God's cloud, would come over the tent, and they would bow and to that whole scenario to God. But I love when it says that when Moses would leave the tent of meetings, Joshua would stay there. Joshua was real. Clearly, his relationship with God was real, not just because he was the aide. He knew he was getting some benefits from this situation. And that's what we got to understand. Yes, I'm under you. You're my leader. But my relationship with God, this is very important to me. My relationship with God, and clearly that was important to Joshua, because he continued fellowship with God even after Moses had left. But God wanted Moses to come back up to the mountain so he can give him those commands again. Remember those two tablets? Moses crashed them down, and you know what? forgiving than we are. We can be so hard on people. And he's just so much more forgiving toward other people than we are. Because when Moses crashed down or slammed down those tablets, I felt like that was God's touched by the hands of God, and he just disrespect. God didn't even bring it up. He said just chisel out 2 more tablets, bring them up back to the mountain, and that was it. He didn't hold no grudge against Moses for slamming those tablets. Isn't that something? So God is more forgiving than we are. We're harder on people. We judge people way harder than God does. So we need to do better. We really do need to do better. And so God gave him those commands again. And, Moses again asked God, say, Lord, if I found favor in your eyes, would you please go with us? And God said that he would, because Moses found favor with God. Because of Moses, God relented and decided to go with the children of Israel. Isn't that something? So guys, look like God hears us when we're obedient to him and we try our hardest to please him. There's some favor there. Isn't that something? So let's keep that in mind, guys, that, let's keep that in mind, that when God is pleased with us, we gain favor from God. And he decided he would go with them. And God told Moses to let children of Israel know when they don't make treaties with the inhabitants there. They're worshiping other gods, and they can be a snare. So your women, when they marry your men, they can become a snare. They're going to want the men to worship just like they worship those idols. They're going to want them to do that. And that's the truth, guys. And people don't like that. But we tend to want to please our partners. and we'll take their sinful life because we don't want to judge them, so they become an influence. So we need to be careful of that. And then, they become a snare. That's wrong, God. They become a snare. And so God tells them, don't make a treaty with them. But when Moses went back down to the children of Israel, 40 days and 40 nights later, his face was all radiant, all bright. And, they were kind of scared when they first saw him. But he told them what God had said. And they took up this offering for everything that God needed them to use for everything. They hadn't started yet. Now he collected everything they needed for the Ark of Covenant, for the tent, the tabernacle, for all the utensils, all the furnishings, everything. They took up all the offerings. And God also Moses told them that God had chosen Bezalel and Eliab they were the craftsmen that God chose, and told them more about that, and that he gave them the ability to teach others. And so I love that part, because it let us know that, first of all, leaders, God has help. You have to ask God to help you to receive that help. And that the talents, God give other people talents. Isn't that something? We can't do it all. Everybody have their own place to play, their own purpose. So there's a lot of points here, guys. I'm sure I can go on and on. If you have any you'd like to share, please place them in the comments. And there you have it, guys. Points in the Bible, day number 29, Exodus chapter 33 through 35. You have a God-filled, blessed day.